This is one of those topics that a med spa doesn't think about until they have to. In this video, I want to walk you through what a pharmacy board inspection could broadly be looking at in a med spa, what tends to raise concerns, and the simple checklist I would want you to think through before an inspection ever happens. Now, before we get into it, this video is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice for your exact situation. And it's not a state-by-state inspection manual. My goal here is to help you understand this broadly so that you can review your own systems, identify possible gaps, and know where you may need state-specific legal guidance. This matters because pharmacy compliance is getting more attention in the med spa space. And inspections from the pharmacy are not usually about just what products are in the office. They're about whether your clinic can clearly support the process around that product. And this is a very different conversation. And the biggest issue I want you to understand today is this. Most inspections are not caused by one giant mistake. They usually show up in the gaps between what a clinic thinks it is doing and what it actually can prove. That paper trail is important. So let's talk about what a pharmacy inspection really looks like. A lot of people think a pharmacy inspection is just about the product that's sitting in your office, but that usually is too narrow. But what matters more is whether your clinic can clearly show the full story around that product. Where did it come from? Who ordered it? Under what authority? How is it received? How is it stored? How is it documented? How is it being used in the practice? And does the workflow make sense from beginning to end? That is the bigger picture. Because when someone is reviewing your clinic, they are not just looking at the existence of a product. They are looking at whether your process around that product is clear, supportable, and consistent. And that's where a lot of practices get surprised because they may know what they meant to do, but in an inspection, the question becomes whether the process is clear enough to show. And once you understand that, the next question becomes, what are the kinds of things that start raising concern? This is where clinics tend to get caught off guard. I've seen it too many times. A pharmacy-related inspection can start uncovering issues when the source is unclear, the documentation is incomplete, the authority is blurry, or the real workflow does not match what the clinic says it does. For example, if your team cannot clearly explain where the product came from, that is a problem. If records are hard to pull when an inspector is asking for them, that is a problem. If it is unclear who ordered something or who had the authority to do it, that is a problem. If products are being handled one way in real life, but the written process suggests something else, that is a problem. And that is why I want med spas to stop thinking about inspections as just a product issue. They are often a process issue. Because once someone starts asking questions, confusion shows up real quick. And when confusion shows up, it usually points to a system that has not been reviewed closely enough. That does not automatically mean that a clinic was trying to intentionally do something wrong, but it does mean that the process may not be strong enough to uphold under scrutiny. Let me give you an example. A clinic believes everything is fine because the team has been using certain pharmacy-sourced products for a while. Nobody has raised any concerns, and everything feels operationally normal. Then an inspection complaint happens. Now the clinic has to clearly show the source, ordering authority, records, storage, and how that product is actually being used inside the clinic. And that's where the gaps start to show up. Not because the team necessarily meant to create risk, but because they never slowed down and looked at whether the process was actually clear, because they never slowed down and looked at whether the process was actually clear enough to defend. And this leads into the part that matters most. What should you actually review now before an inspection ever happens? This is the part I want people to leave with. If you want a broad internal review before an outside review ever forces you to, I would start with a simple checklist. First, can you identify where each prescription came from? Second, can you show who ordered it and under what authority? Third, can you show it how it was received, stored, and handled once it entered the practice? Fourth, can you show how it was being documented and tracked? And fifth, does the way the product is actually being used in the clinic match the process the clinic says it follows? That is a very strong place to start because those questions can reveal a lot quickly. They can show you where your systems are clear, they can show you where you're relying on assumptions, and they can show you where your workflow needs attention before an inspector ever sees it. So if you're a med spa owner, solo injector, provider, or someone managing clinic operations, the goal is not to wait until something feels urgent. The goal is to review the process while you still have the space to fix it calmly, because inspections are usually less about what you say your process is and more about what you can actually show. And if your team cannot clearly explain the source, the authority, the storage, the documentation, and workflow, This is where exposure tends to build. A pharmacy board inspection is not usually about one dramatic mistake. It's about whether your clinic can show the process makes sense. And if there are gaps in that process, an inspection can expose them a lot faster than most owners expect. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Do not wait for a complaint, an event, or an inspection to find out where your pharmacy process is weak. Run that checklist now. Look at the process now and make sure what your clinic is doing is actually clear, consistent, and supportable. If you want help reviewing your systems and identifying where your pharmacy process may need tightening, that is exactly the kind of compliance support we help practices with. You can connect with us through the link below. And if this was helpful, let me know what part of pharmacy compliance you want me to break down next.